All righty, friends, it is that time again. Welcome back to the Blessed Family Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Dodd. So excited that you're here. Hey, I've got an announcement to make that I think you'll be excited about. I hope you will be. We have another book published. It's not General, the third book of Benai. I'm so sorry. It's not The Shepherd and the Wolf or The Wolf and the Shepherd, the fifth book of our scroll saga. It's a book called Rites of Passage, and the tagline is something like Raising Masculine Sons and Feminine Daughters. Rites of Passage are something that our forefathers did. That practice has been lost. By the grace of God, we, the Dodds, have in our little circle been resurrecting it. And honestly, this might sound like it's too much, but I'm just being honest. I cannot imagine my children without rites of passage. I can't imagine, where we'd be without rites of passage. Rites of passage have been a huge blessing. And so I'd encourage you to check out this book. It's a very short read. It's the shortest book I've published, 20,000 words. I try to make books short because, hey, time is precious. So Rites of Passage, Amazon.com. Check it out. All right, friends. Wow, check out this title. Doesn't it just grab you? Why Our Brains Are Getting Weaker and What to Do About It. Why our brains are getting weaker and what to do about it. Okay, so the basic premise of this talk is that technology today, especially online, can have negative consequences upon our mind. So there's nothing wrong with going online. Right now, if you're listening to this, you're online. There's nothing wrong with Googling something, but they can have negative consequences. Now, there is some things online that we just need to get rid of. Of course, pornography is the easy example. That needs to be crucified. That needs to be done. By the grace of God, I do believe one day it will be outlawed in our nation. Lord, let it be. Another obvious example of things that are just not a good idea is the mind-numbing scrolling. I would encourage you to stop that. Like, listen, I'm not saying it's wrong to watch a YouTube short, but in my opinion, personal opinion, to sit there and just scroll for half an hour through YouTube shorts, I don't think it's a very good idea. And it's also dangerous because you don't know what short is coming up next. So if you allow your kids to do that, might not be a good idea. Okay, so let me give you some examples of why our brains are getting weaker. Today, we have the ability to get answers, but guess what? We don't have to look for them. We don't have to search. If you want to know who the president was in 1800, you don't have to do what I would have had to have done. I would have had to either ask someone, I would have had to go to the library, look in this thing called a card catalog index. I would have actually had to go write down numbers and find the book. Goodness gracious. I would have had to read it. And within reading it, try and find the answer. And of course, the third option was the handy encyclopedia. You say, what's that? Well, they were what the internet was. They were what Google was before we had Google. Now, once again, nothing wrong with Google, but we have the ability to get answers and we don't have to try. It would be like if we had the ability to lift heavy objects without having to actually use our muscles would get weaker. Think about that. It would be like the people at the end of WALL-E, right? So we have the ability to get answers without having to look for them. We also have the ability to get answers instantly, and we don't have to remember things. For instance, if you find out who the president was in 1800, you probably aren't going to remember. What's the point? Because you can just ask again. Now, if you go to the library and you have to find the book, and you have to actually read the book and research, and then you find the answer, you might remember it because you had to work for it. If I'm making a recipe, if I have to follow a recipe and really actually get ingredients, I might remember the recipe. But if making a recipe was just a microwave dinner, putting it in, pushing 30 seconds, once again, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'm not saying microwaves are evil. I'm not saying Google's evil. But I'm just saying we need to be aware that some of the helpful things we have at our fingertips, which we should use, are at the same time making our brains weaker. Writing is the same way. For instance, when I was younger and I had to write papers for school, I didn't have Grammarly. I didn't have Copilot, which I'm not judging other people, but I personally refuse, when I write books, to use Grammarly. I refuse to use Copilot. Like I try and get it uninstalled, right? It pops up and I just don't want it. Now, I'm not saying those things are evil. In a pinch, someone in their job, they need to get something done and they need a paper written or they need advertising thing, okay. But think about it. People no longer have to remember grammar. They don't have to remember spelling. They don't have to learn how to write. Now, once again, I have to give this disclaimer. These tools I've been referencing, Google, Grammarly, etc. I'm not saying they're evil or bad. They are tools. We can use them, but we need to balance this in a way that keep our minds. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, some of you are going to disagree with this, and I kind of disagree with it too, but I can't think of a better example on the fly. Microwave dinners. I'm not saying they're evil, although, they aren't evil. They're not very nutritious, but those aren't bad. They're convenient. But we don't want that to replace a man or woman being able to actually fix a real meal. So we can use the technology, but we don't want to lose historically what we had, right? For instance, I think ovens are great, but I still think we should learn how to make a fire and even how to cook over it. So it's not that these things are bad, but we don't want to embrace them without still practicing and using the foundations of what we need. So let me go ahead and give you the cures. This talk is called Why Our Brains Are Getting Weaker and What to Do About It. I think you're all on board with why our brains are getting weaker. You get it. It makes sense. Once again, we don't have to remember things. And guys, people's memories, like there's studies coming out, people's memories are getting worse. Like a lot of people don't remember. For instance, you'll say, hey, did you know that, last year, well, I don't remember when it was, but, there was an assassination attempt on Trump. And they'll go, oh, dude, that's right. I forgot about that. We just don't remember stuff because we're programming our brains to just be YouTube short focused, right? Just to get a little bit, okay, Siri, what is? Okay, Google, what is? Just quick tidbits that, there's parts of our brain that are, it's a very good part of our brain, and it is to remember something for a few seconds, right? Like, okay, which way am I going, right or left? Take a right. Well, I'm not going to remember that for the rest of my life. Or, okay, what road do I take? Or what page should I turn to, right? For instance, I've told people, hey, turn to this page in the Bible. In this Bible, it's page 356. I don't remember that page number. I'm not supposed to. There's a part of our brain for short. Well, that's the only part we're feeding. We're feeding only the short, very, very short-term part of our brain. So what's the cure? Okay, here's the cure. I'm glad you asked. There are two cures. Cure number one, and this might seem overly simple, but it's true. These work. Cure number one is to read books. And I'm going to end this talk today with a C.S. Lewis quote. But read books. Read good books. Read old books. Sit down, and this is for children especially, but adults, you need it also. Read books. Sit down and read good, old, long books. Read Plymouth Plantation. Read novels. Read books, okay? That's the first thing. And the second cure to using technology but keeping our minds exercised and sharp and proficient is to write, okay? To write. And I would say write without aids, without this technology. Just write, whether it's a paper, whether it's a story, whether it's a letter. Just write, okay? Once again, microwave's fine. We still need to know how to cook. Oven's fine. We still need to know how to make a fire. GPS, great tool, but we still need to know how to use a map, or even better, check this out. We need to know how to get directions and just follow them. Okay, go till you see that big tree, take a right. Go, you'll see a purple house, take a left. We need to exercise our brain. So this is balance. And for me, personally, the conclusion is we don't avoid technology, but neither do we forsake foundational, healthy practices such as reading and writing. Okay? So the cure to save your brains and my brains and the brains of our children is we need to be reading books a lot. The more we read. Now, can you read too much? Sure, but I don't know too many people who do that. That's like not a problem. I've never had to do a podcast called stop reading. You read too much. So read books. Get your children. Pray that God will give them a love for reading. Take away the competition. Encourage them. Find books that they enjoy. It doesn't have to be all these overly spiritual, Charles Spurgeon sermons. It can be The Hobbit. Get them to read books and get them to write. To write, you have to, and I'd say even handwritten, although there's nothing wrong with typing, but get them to order their thoughts on paper, okay? That's the cure. Okay, I want to end with a quote from C.S. Lewis. It goes something like this. It says, "The only way to not be duped by the world. In order to not be duped, we need to keep the sea breeze of the centuries blowing through our mind." So the sea breeze of the days of the founding of this country, the sea breeze of the Reformation, the sea breeze of the days of Christ, the sea breeze of the days before that, BC days. We need to keep the sea breeze of history blowing through our minds. And C.S. Lewis says, and the only way to do that is to read old books. So read old books. Get your children in love with old books, and their brains will be preserved. All right, friends. Well, that's all for today. Blessings to you. Don't forget, check out our new book, Rites of Passage. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.